weekend racing. It's time to recap it. And who better to do it than Michael and Magic? Two bros/pros who cover the highs and lows of racing around the globe on every one of their shows. Real fans look forward to these guys and their last thoughts, cause they know they're not talking out of their royal ascot. What they say makes sense. So ladies and gents, sit back and relax as Blinkers Off presents The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.
What's up, everybody? I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
And this is The Magic Mike Show. Mr. Samich, how'd you like that introduction?
I like it, man. Look at you in the video production. I didn't know you had these hidden talents.
I really had no idea how that was going to go. I would have publicized that we were going to have a cool introduction to get more people to watch when we first started. I had no idea it was going to work like that. So, yay, it worked. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. It's been a close call day. Did the bombs over at Keeneland as a bonus day today, and there's been two noses that went the wrong way, or else we'd be sitting pretty here in the late pick five. But we joked about it last time, where like every now and then you get those podcasts where I'm not paying total attention. Yeah, viewers are going to get one of those this time. I'm in a live tournament right now. I've got a couple others going on. I got no bets left, but I got a bunch of tournaments left, including $1,000 shot at a BCBC seat. So I might, be jumping in and out a little bit. We got one more from Belmont where we just need to dodge the 5, and then we've got a couple left from Keeneland. One more from Keeneland. And then I'll be 100% focused on the Magic Mike Show here.
That's good. I'm so excited to hear that you're already not going to be listening to me. So
what can I say? I'll listen to most of it.
At least you're being honest.
Yeah, just in 2-minute spurts, you might not have my full attention.
So we are back doing the live stream here for you. We are on Twitter, we are on Periscope, on Facebook, on YouTube. You can catch all that here. This will all be uploaded as a podcast format, but we try to do some things that are a little different for you, just so that you get rewarded for tuning in and watching with us live here. Mr. Samich, what's the best thing that you saw this week, aside from that introduction just now?
Yeah, I mean, the introduction would be easily number one, but I mean, we don't want to just pile on that. So I am going to go with, I'm in some NHC qualifiers on Friday to try and get the second seat. And I was really excited to see Keeneland, Belmont, Del Mar. That's a heck of a lineup. I don't think we've never had Keeneland going with these tracks at the same time, so it's kind of cool to see those all intermixing at once.
It's true, yeah.
And it's just a lot of fun to have these big tracks back. Like I really enjoyed. I'm not going to knock any of the small tracks. I think that some of them were very creative in it going through this pandemic and how they were able to make sure they A, kept going, but B, also attracted additional bettors. Will Rogers did a great job. I know Fauner. People didn't love the product every time, but they did a great job to keep it open and keep big pools going. I love how Indiana Grand had the Indiana Derby, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about yesterday on a Wednesday to make it unique during this situation. And I'm excited for this 5-day Keeneland meet, which we're 2 days into now. And it's fun that we have, we've got Keeneland now. We've got Del Mar obviously starting on Friday, and Saratoga's now, 8 days away, 7 days away? I mean, it's awesome to have these major circuits back that I love to bet. So I'm pretty pumped about that. And it was fun seeing Del Mar just in that when I opened up the races. So I can't wait for Del Mar to start. I'm excited we're doing this Big Four.
I know. I actually couldn't believe that it was here. It was one of those things when we were talking the last couple of podcasts when I would say, all right, well, coming up, what we have to look forward to. And I kept saying Del Mar, and I could hear myself saying it. And I was like, I don't believe it. Del Mar's really back. Del Mar's really back, baby. We're recording this on Thursday. Opening day is tomorrow. The headlining event of the day / the opening weekend is the $100,000 Oceanside Stakes. Tiz the Magician is finally getting back on the turf. So good luck to our little boy Tiz there.
You can't put that hat on. Can't ruin that nice little do you got going now.
Okay, so since you brought it up, you want to see something really crazy? So this is the finished product. This is what it looks like now. I went over 4 months without getting a haircut. It was closer to 5. This is how bad it had gotten. Look at that. Look at that mess right there.
See why Mrs. Magic sent you to the you kind of look like Dennis O'Neill, little Dennis O'Neill in you there.
Oh geez. That's that right there is like, not so much the beard, but like the hair. You're like, that's a guy who's like on the 7th place team, in the hockey playoffs right now, just is willing to do whatever it takes to get down and dirty and do it. And I'd say it's a face only a mother could love. I showed that picture to my mother. She was like, your new haircut looks good is the response I got. So
nice. I like the positivity of the mother there.
Yeah. The best thing that I saw, man, actually just watched it earlier today. There was a documentary that the Major League Baseball Network did about Ken Griffey Jr. And it was a 1 hour thing, but it was all about his his rise in his career and how amazing he was. And that thing was great. So if you get a chance, if you haven't seen it yet, it's actually, I'm not going to say that it's on YouTube illegally, but if you were to go to YouTube and search for it, you probably won't have a hard time finding the whole show without any commercial interruptions. So if you're a baseball fan, if you're like Mike and I were growing up in the 90s, man, Ken Griffey, that was when baseball really took a big shift to being like a cool sport. It was Griffey with the backwards hat, that huge smile that just lit up a room. The video games, man. I didn't even like baseball as a kid. I loved Ken Griffey Jr. as a little kid.
Yeah, it's too bad I couldn't keep it up, huh? It's gone from one end of the spectrum to the other. It was the cool sport. Now it is, I'd say, probably lowest on the totem pole.
Yeah, and it's got its own issues. I've got a lot of issues with the way that baseball's been run. I think first of all, the fact that it seems to be a 10-month sport. That's horse racing's job. Get out of here. This is our room right here.
Well, there's just too many games, man. I can't watch 162 games. I get bored. But Ken Griffey Jr. baseball and SNES, that was the bomb. I remember playing that back in the day. That was a lot of fun. RBI baseball and Nintendo, that was incredible. RBI 2, I think, was the one I was always the Cubs, Sutcliffe, Andre Dawson, Mark Grace. That was a awesome team. Ryan Sandberg, that was an absolute blast. They were terrible for some reason. Somehow they were bad with all these good players. But man, in RBI baseball too, with me at the sticks, they were very, very good. So
it's sad because if there was once the season of the baseball strike, he had 40 home runs in August. He could have set the record for home runs potentially, if not for the strike. And then the next year, what was the issue? Oh, that was when his injuries first happened, when he ran into the wall and broke his left wrist. But like you just said, I think one of the coolest things, especially looking back 20 years later, he did it clean. Nobody in that sport was clean, and Ken Griffey Jr. was clean. And it's one of those things where if 90% of the sluggers or the hitters in baseball, hell, even the pitchers, you find out that they were juicing, you're like, yeah, it makes sense.
Not surprised.
If I found out Griffey, like if it ever came out that Griffey like juiced even once, I think it'd break my heart because he was such a pure, smooth, like finesse play. It was just amazing watching him play.
Well, and he never had that like Barry Bonds, glam up moment from a muscle perspective where he just ballooned and you're just like, how did that, what, your neck is like 8 sizes bigger. What happened?
Barry Bonds was Ken Griffey Jr.'s size when he started because he was a base stealing machine. And then all of a sudden overnight, he just looked like Ben Grimm, the Thing from the Fantastic Four. Just,
and we never had one of those with Griffey. And it was a shame because he always got hurt just balling out. He always got hurt, given 100%. And it's a bummer when you see those hustle plays end up in injury, especially with someone as talented as Griffey. I remember his 1989 Upper Deck rookie card was like the card when I was growing up. That was the one everyone wanted. It had, it was just, it's amazing. I was looking it up. It still sells for like $2,000 if you have a PSA 10, the Griffey rookie. So I'm kind of surprised because there were just so many of them.
There were a lot, but I think it's especially because we're in an age of nostalgia right now. I think, people like you and I who are hitting, $2,000 pick fives at Keeneland on a Thursday, Wednesday, we've got that extra money lying around to just go out and buy some Ken Griffey baseball cards.
Might as well have some fun with it, man. You got a little scratch, pockets a little heavy. You might as well lighten them up and throw in a baseball card investment because those always work out so well.
Right. Well, on today's show, we're going to be looking at the late pick 4 at Del Mar on Saturday, July 11th. But like Mike said at the beginning, we did have the Indiana Derby and the Indiana Oaks on Wednesday. The Indiana Derby winner, Sherrod Sense, I thought he looked pretty good. We can talk about it real quick. He's not nominated for the Triple Crown. It took him a long time to really find his groove, and it wasn't the best field that he beat. But the way he did it and the way he drew off tells me, you get him in these mile and an eighth or longer distance races on dirt. I think, not a grade 1 winner necessarily, but a grade 2, grade 3 unlisted or ungraded stakes. I think he's going to be a contender. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought he ran a great race. He got a nice trip, was able to kind of swoop around the turn and didn't really get threatened at any point. We talked about it a little bit. We were both against the 9, and that turned out to be the right idea. Yep. I thought he ran good. And this is like one of those classic horses that I think could do really well in the second tier derbies. And, if we have West Virginia derbies and Pennsylvania derbies and those type of derbies, when you're facing the second tier 3-year-olds, this would be a great year for that style of horse. Now, I'm not sure how many of those are going to be run and if the purses are going to be as as sweet as they have been in the past. But the other thing is you could also see this horse continue to take a step forward. This is a pretty lightly raced horse. I wouldn't really put him up in the Derby contender level, but
Right.
maybe he could take a couple steps forward and be someone like Spun to Run, who really turned his season around and turned into a very, very good 3-year-old later in the year.
So there was a little bit of controversy because Major Fed, who ended up running second, the jockey James Graham afterwards lodged an objection. He said he got bumped. Indiana Grand's camera system isn't really set up to where you can see what happens in the turn. And afterwards, Graham said, yeah, it happens right where he was able to identify in the video. Right there it happens. I'm like, there's no shot that they have in Indiana Grand where I could definitively say I could see where the contact was happening, but as strongly as Graham made it seem like it was, and he might have been exaggerating a little bit, but did you feel like if Major Fed maybe doesn't get bumped, did he still have a chance? Because the way Shared Sense drew off in the stretch, I don't know. I have a hard time believing he was going to get caught.
Yeah, I don't think he was that. They were running 1-2 in that order, no matter what happened. And so for me, I don't think that was a really big issue. It just happened to. He probably got bumped a little bit, but I don't think it made enough of a reason to change it over. A lot of times they talk about the reason you have horses go up or go down is to cost them a placing. Since Major Fed ran second, I don't see how it cost him a placing in this spot. I mean, he was clearly running second the entire time. So for me, I think they'd made the right call, and it was one of the ones where you got to leave the horse up and leave Major Fed in second.
Well, and Giroux also doesn't have a reputation as a dirty rider, right? So you believe when something like that happens, he wasn't dangerous. He wasn't, trying to cause any issue or cause contact like some South Florida jockeys. So I'm with you on that. She Dares the Devil wins the Indiana Oaks. Same trainer, Brad Cox, same jockey front row, looked great. It's almost felt like she's ready to run. We just need a place to put her effort because other than the Honeybee, she's looked really strong. And even in the Honeybee, she wasn't terrible. She just, faced a complete monster. So I thought that she ran really well. She's definitely got enough points to make the Kentucky Oaks. What did you think?
I was surprised she wasn't in the Ashland. I was surprised we didn't see her at Keeneland after that effort because you saw her run so well there that the Keeneland would have made sense. You got a little bit of price tag over there at Keeneland, so you could go for some more money. And maybe you didn't necessarily know where Swiss Skydiver was going. When you chose the race, so maybe that's one of the reasons why you ended up there. But I mean, she clearly was loaded. She looked awesome. I tried to beat her. I probably shouldn't have, but what can you do? And I don't think she can really compete with the top fillies in this class. I think it really depends on what Swiss Skydiver does and a couple of the others. But I think that this was a good spot for her to just kind of get that win, and she's definitely in the Oaks gate now, so that's definitely a positive as well.
Well, and Florent Giroux did have to get after her a couple of times. She won pretty impressively, but Giroux said after the race that he had to get after her just because she's used to being at Churchill Downs. That's where she trains. That's where she's normally stabled. He said she got to Indiana Grand. She didn't know where she was, and so she was just kind of looking around in the stretch, so I had to pop her a couple of times. But it wasn't a whole lot that she beat here, but it was impressive. And even if she's, hits the board in the Kentucky Oaks, I mean, it's a pretty good spot. I looked at the field for the Ashland. Even without Swiss Skydiver, I think this was the right decision. I think pick up the win, pick up that nice check in a $200,000 race, get the black type on her, graded black type, move on to a bigger and better thing. I thought this was the right move for her.
Yeah, I mean, she won easy, and they cashed $120,000. You can't really argue with that.
Yeah, exactly. All right, like I said on today's show, we're looking at the late pick 4 sequence at Del Mar for Saturday, July 11th. You ready, Mr. Samich?
Yeah, let's do it. Last at Keeneland, I like the 1, 2, 9, 15.
1, 2, 9, 15.
Not necessarily in that order. The 2 is the bomb, and then I like the 15 the most. The 15 and the 1.
All right. Well,
someone asked in the chat, so just throw it out there.
Yeah, I saw it. Keep us updated how it goes. Until then, riders up. All right, kicking off the late pick 4 sequence at Del Mar on Saturday, July 11th, the opening Saturday for the summer Del Mar meet. Race 7 on the card. You've got a field of 8 geldings. They're all geldings, 3 and up. Non-winners of 2 lifetime in for a $16,000 tag, going 6.5 furlongs on the main track. And you got a horse here that's favored, Mike, on the rail, Regalo at 5-2. And this is one of those ones where you're really scared to try and play too heavily in any spot, because this is a son of Curlin who was bought for $240,000, who suddenly drops down for a $25,000 tag, gets claimed, and now he's back for 16 after that claim. I love the connections with Lerner and Fuentes riding, and I love that he's by Curlin as a 4-year-old. This is a defensive use at best for me. What did you do with it?
Yeah, this race was the biggest head scratcher for me. At one point or another, I was using 5 different horses in here. I ended up going 3 deep in this spot, and I struggled to narrow it down. Yeah, I had a horse on top that I'm not even using in my ticket at one point. So it was tough. I mean, it's not an easy race. It's a tough one to start out with. You're right. The one horse is a clear favorite. This is the horse that should be the favorite. But man, I mean, this horse is going to get bet down, right? I mean, 5-2 is not, you're not getting 5-2. You're going to end up getting 6-5. And this is one of the scarier 6-5s you could look at because, like you said, the horse was running in optional 40s. And gets dropped to 25 non-winners of 2. Rispoli takes the mount. Sadler's a good barn in Southern California. And they're dropping it down to 16 afterward. I mean, it's just like, oh, so are they just trying to get a win in the books at Del Mar? Or do they think if they win and get claimed, they're good to go? I mean, this is a scary spot. The 6.5 furlongs probably hits this horse right between the eyes. Mm-hmm. But the early speed isn't really there either. And in a race that's lacking pace, that's a big concern for me. I mean, this horse is going to have to run into one of 2 horses, which I went back and forth in between of which one I'm going to use. The one was one of my must use because I don't know how you leave that horse out. The other one's going to end up being the 7, and that's Manta Ray Island. This is just an interesting spot for this horse. I mean, we're coming down from Golden Gate. This horse is taking a big class drop off a big layoff. But I'm going to trust Doug O'Neill is going to be able to get this horse ready. There's only 2 speed horses in this race. Right inside of the 7, Monterey Island, was the 6, Taco Waka, who I had as my top pick for a while because of the 7 furlong race a while back at Santa Anita. But I think that the 7's faster, and I don't think the 6 can pass anyone. And because of that, I think you kind of have to go to the 7. If this was 6 furlongs, I'd have a lot more faith in the 7 horse here. That last half furlong is awfully scary. Mm-hmm. But this is by far the lowest level that this horse has ever been at. This horse has good breeding. It was originally in the Pletcher barn. Now we're in the O'Neill barn. You get Figueroa, who is a good hustle out of the gate rider. There's no speed in here. There's just no speed. And so for me, I don't know how you don't end up using the 7 horse as well. So I'm going to go with the 1 and the 7 in my must uses. Did you end up with the 7? Did you pass on the 7?
You and I did the same thing with different horses here. The 7 was actually my top pick for a while. Then all of a sudden I was like, I can't do this because of what you said. And mind you, this is a scary horse for me to leave off here. If I left the 1 off instead of the 7, I wouldn't feel as worried necessarily. But I'm trying to beat the 7 because of that half furlong, like you said.
Yeah, it's tough.
And if you look at this horse's history, it always gets caught in that first start back. And this horse hasn't run since March of 2019. I also didn't like that this horse had to go to Golden Gate to get the job done on the synthetic against a much lesser competition than what he'd been facing and could have been facing at Santa Anita last spring of 2019. He's a first-time gelding. He's a 5-year-old, so you have to appreciate that they're still keeping him around and trying to push him. I'm not a big Figueroa fan, so I don't really love that as well. But you made good points for him. This is just me taking a stand. You probably remember this better than I do. It was I think it was last Del Mar summer meet. That first day or two, Doug O'Neill, you couldn't touch him. He was so hot that if you got anywhere close to him, you got scorched. Yeah, so there's a concern here too, where Doug O'Neill is going to be having this horse ready for Del Mar.
He does love some Del Mar.
He does. Yeah, he really does. And he's 22% with a really nice ROI with claiming. That said, I went with the 8 horse on top. All I can say, I think this horse's best effort wins this. And his 2 efforts so far this year, 68 Beyer, 65 Beyer. He was going 6 furlongs, ran well, stretched out to a mile, faded a little bit late. Now we're cutting back to 6.5 furlongs. This is the 3rd start of the cycle. Juan Hernandez comes aboard. He was the top jockey at Golden Gate for several years. He's now officially relocated to Southern California. He started out well at Los Al. I know it was the Los Al summer meet. None of the big heavy hitting jockeys were there, but he tied Edwin Maldonado for the most wins for any jockey. So he's already coming to Southern California, made a little bit of a name for himself. I like that there's a cutback here. Val Brinkroff is 2 for 10 going route to sprint. So I used him. I also used the 1, and I just couldn't use the 7. But you made really great points for him.
Yeah, I mean, the 8 was on my ticket until about 5 minutes before the show.
I'm telling you, we just did that with him. Yeah,
it's a tough race, and I could make an argument for. The funny thing is, you're not making an argument for. It's which of your arguments against are the strongest.
Right.
You know, it's because I don't really love anyone here. I'm going to go with the 4, Little Sydney is my other horse. This is Glatt and Cedillo, who I think is a great combination 1-2. This horse has been ridden by Cedillo twice before this. This is the 3rd time. Look, it faced winners last time for the first time. That's a big step up. They went 1-11-4, and this horse was close to the pace and just kind of quit off it, going 7 furlongs at Santa Anita. We're shortening up to 6.5. This horse is going to be able to stalk which I don't think really anyone else in this field can do.
Mhm.
Right behind the 2 speed horses, the 6 and the 7. So I think the 4 gets the first run on everybody. We're dropping a couple pounds in weight, which I think is a positive. It's a 4-year-old improving later in the season. I mean, I didn't want to eat a short price on the 8 who's going up in class, not dropping down, and it's going to be way back again.
I'm with you on we lost Mike on the feed.
I don't want deep closers. Yeah, well, I was really making a good point too. That's just a shame. I don't want a deep closer in this field, and I feel like the 8 is going to be another one of those deep closers. And so I'm looking at horses that are going to really set up well more than necessarily the talent, because I think any of these horses could win if you really want to. Slam the all button here. I mean, this is the most, I don't love the one as a big favorite, and it's just a wide open field. So, yeah, I mean, for me, it's just kind of crazy here. But I'm going to end up with the 1, 4, and 7. I think that the 4 is going to sit the trip right behind the speed. Second time against winners. I think that's going to end up being your 7 for me, and let's hope we can call him home.
Yeah, the 4 was the third one that I used as well, and I agree with all the points you made. I'll just throw one last out. When he faced winners, he was facing non-winners of 3 lifetime. That was a spot where Glatt was having problems getting a race to fill for Lil Sydney that actually fit the condition. So he actually went to the N3L level to try and get the job done, and it wasn't there. So now that we're cutting back to non-winners of 2 lifetime, it doesn't sound like a lot, but at this low claiming level, that can make a big difference. So we'll move on to race 8, the second leg of the late pick 4 sequence at Del Mar on Saturday, July 11th. And race 8 is the $65,000 Wicker Stakes. Last year, Mike, Higher Power parlayed a second place finish here into winning the Grade 1 Pacific Classic. I don't know that we're going to see the Pacific Classic winner come out of this field. If we do, there's a lot of problems in Southern California. You got a field of 9 males, 4 and up, going a mile on the turf course. The favorite is, I was surprised by this, is the number 1 Kiwi's Dream, coming down from Golden Gate after missing in back-to-back stakes efforts really strongly by a head each time. He is your favorite. Again, this is a defensive use for a rail horse that I liked him a lot, but there was one horse I liked a little bit more here, and there is a lot of speed signed on. Where are you going on top?
Yeah, that to me was really the defining thing here, was all of the ridiculous speed that ended up in this spot. So because of all of that speed, I really just looked for horses to fade. I mean, I don't understand who is going to get the lead. I mean, Kiki's Dream is obviously going to fire out. You've got Voodoo Song in here who wants to go. Bob and Jackie's going to be a pace presence, and Bolo doesn't know what to do without the lead. So you have 4 horses, and sometimes you got 2 or 3 horses that go out there and they burn up the track. Now you've got 4 horses that can go out there and absolutely fly early. And so I'm looking at this and wondering, okay, what do I do with this? And what I decided to do was use the 4 horses that are all closers. I'm going to look for horses that are coming off the pace. And I went back and forth between my top pick here. I'm going to go all the way outside, go the 9 Big Score. Look, this horse ran huge last time, ran 100 Beyer, was continuously improving, debuted in this race last year, and ran well, didn't run poorly, so we know it can run well off the layoff, has consistently been in the 90s Beyer area. I think the mile is really what this horse wants, and I think this just is going to set up really well. I think that 109 is something you could see again, and if you see a 109, I think you're going to see a pace collapse. I don't see any of these horses really holding on if they go that fast up front, and so I think that the 9 is going to just get the perfect setup. I also really like the 7. This is a second off the layoff for the 7 horse, who's again another horse that's just a straight up miler, coming off a career best effort, but that doesn't really bother me that much because it was off the layoff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love Roman. We've talked about it a little bit. It's the one weakness on here. It's the reason this horse isn't my top pick, because I do expect an improvement here. And if we do get a Beyer jump, and this is a rather lightly raced 6-year-old. I mean, only 20 starts as a 6-year-old isn't a heavily started horse. I think this horse has a real good shot at coming from off the pace as well. And the difference between the 9 and the 7 is that the 7 can be tactical. So I think the 7 gets first run on the speed. I think the speed collapses. And if it does, and that's the reason I like the 7, those are going to be my must uses, the 7 and the 9. I did use 2 other horses here going 4 deep. Did you use either the 7 or the 9?
9 is my top pick as well. You brought up all great points. By the way, I thought that he had some really strong class in here. He likes Del Mar, and if you just look at the form where it says he's got 1 win, 2 seconds, and then third from 7 starts, you're like, okay, so 3 times he didn't get there, but he was in the Seabiscuit, which is a grade 2, the Del Mar Mile, which is a grade 2. He was 4th, beaten less than 2 lengths in this race last year. He broke his maiden at first asking here. He was 2nd in the Del Mar Juvenile Turf. He likes Del Mar, so I like him a lot. I think Cedillo was going to be perfectly fine for this jockey. By the way, in that City of Hope mile that you talked about where they went 109, they came home in sub-12s. That last, it was less than 24 seconds for them to get, and this horse was flying, and he
132.
missed by a half length. By half length in that
Yep.
race at a grade 2. I think I almost singled him. I loved him that much that I almost singled him. The 7 I didn't use, it was because of Rahman. When Galat uses certain jockeys, they teamed like Cedillo, they do really well. And when he uses Rahman, they run well, but it doesn't seem to be at the level. I don't know if it's that Rahman's not as good as Cedillo, or if it's just that Cedillo's getting the better horses than Rahman. But he's got great class too. He dead heated with his stablemate in the American, Sharp Samurai, for third. If Sharp Samurai's here, he's a heavy favorite. 3 back, he lost to Amos by less than a length. Amos is in the grade 1 Maker's Mark mile at Keeneland tomorrow. There's a lot of talent there. So I'm not using him, but it's just because of who the jockey is aboard. I ended up only going 2 deep here. 7 was the last one to hit the cutting room floor. I'm going on the rail with Kiwi's Dream, like I said. It's a defensive use, but for me, if Bolo doesn't get the lead, he's not winning. If Bob and Jackie's going to need a tremendous buyer upswing for him to get there, I just think the Kiwi's Dream is the best of the speed here. And if something crazy happens, if he does get a little bit of an early lead, Juan Hernandez knows how to ride this horse as well as anyone, I think that he's the best of the speed. Also, because he's Australian born, this is only technically the second half of his 4-year-old season, and that's something we talk about, where this is really where you see a lot of improvement from him, where he's nearing the end of his 4-year-old season. He is really peaking right now, and if you look at his form, going routing was really the tonic for him. So I went 9-1 here, but I'm curious to hear about your other ones as well.
Yeah, I mean, he lost by a head to Neptune Storm. There's no shame in that. And the grade 3 San Francisco,
who would be a heavy favorite here if he was showing up.
Yeah, I agree with that. The one knock on him in the last 2 races is his internal fractions have been 23-4, 48, or 23-4, 47-4. He's not getting that today. I mean, he's going to have to put a little pace injection to be able to be on the lead going there. Mm-hmm. He does have a win going 23-1, 46-2, but that was 6 furlongs, and that was in $40,000 claimers. This is a huge step up. So I agree with you that the 1 is a class of the speed. He was actually the last horse to hit my cutting room floor. I just don't see how a speed horse holds here. I don't see it. So I'm going to go to the 8 next, Murad Khan. This horse is another one where it's got really good record at a mile, 6 wins at 14 starts. And it's going to sit a trip much like the 7 horse. I mean, we're just going to be sitting right behind the pace. This horse likes Del Mar, 2 for 3 at Del Mar, was able to win last year, going a mile here over this course. So we know this horse likes Del Mar. It's going to get the pace to run into, and he's been able to be tactical almost irregardless of what the pace is up front. I like the fact that this is going to be third off a layoff. I think this horse was set up well for here. We've talked about Doug O'Neill being absolutely hot early at the Del Mar meets. So I think that Murad Khan is going to get a perfect setup. And if you look at the last race, he couldn't close into that because they closed too quickly to end that race. So I'm not going to take anything away from that last race. Mm-hmm. He's also carrying 125. We're cutting back to 121 today, which is going to happen with the 1 as well. But I do think that weight is going to help him close a little bit better. Last horse I'm going to use is a 3 horse, Jasikin. Look, this horse is an interesting one because it's a Ronus Racing horse who's no longer with Sadler. So that immediately just kind of draws a question mark.
Do you know why?
No, I don't.
John Sadler's been suspended for a couple drug overages. Juan Leyva is his assistant.
There we go. So it's
basically John Sadler.
There we go. So this horse was like highly touted during the 3-year-old year. Mm-hmm. And this horse won 2 races, was able to beat Legends of War, who's a very good horse in an $80,000 optional, won the Oceanside at Del Mar at a mile. This horse, I think, is better at a mile. With a realistic buyer jump, first-time 4-year-old, this horse could be huge. And Rispoli picks up the mount on turf. This horse wants to come from way back, going to get the pace to run into. I think 8-1 is a nice price here on the 3 horse. So I'm going to end up going 4 deep here with the 3, 7, 8, and 9. The 1 horse would be the speed I would use. I just don't see how you can use speed in this race. And this is one of those where I just wanted to take a swing with some of the closers because they're all better prices too. I mean, Voodoo Song at 4-1 seems nutty to me in this spot.
I don't understand why he keeps getting bet.
Yeah, I mean, even Kiki's Dream at 3-1 seems nutty to me. I just, so there's and Bob and Jackie at 8-1. I like Bolo at 5-1. How are all of those horses lower prices than the 3 horse?
So shout out to John. I think 8-1 is the fair price to set on him for a morning line. Shout out to John Lees, who is the pre-race paddock host at Del Mar. He is now the morning line odds maker for Del Mar. So I thought that he did a good job here. My concern with Jasikin, and I did really want to try and fit him in, that's a big improvement that you need to see from him in order to compete. This is his first start as a 4-year-old, and he was improving with every start last year. I'll give you that. But for me personally, just the fact that he is going to need to be about a 15% improvement on his career best Beyer, you could see that. I just think it's a big ask first time back. My big concern with your 8-horse, Murad Khan, he's 7 years old. We know what he's going to do, which is max out at about 93, 95. I don't think that's enough to win this. I think he needs to be just a little bit better. And so I think if I was using the 3 and the 8, it's like a trifecta, hell, even underneath an exact, I think those are good spots for him. I just couldn't pull the trigger on using them on top to try and win here. But those are my only knocks. They both love Mile, and they both very clearly love Del Mar.
Yeah, I mean, I'm swinging a little bit. I'll agree with that, but I like the prices on them. Give me 12-1. Give me 8-1. I mean, that's the thing, is that I think 4 horses can't win this race. And because of that, I'm going to love the price on the closers. And so that's why I kind of gravitated toward using all 4 of them, because you know how I hate to single closers. I mean, I can't stand singling them, because you get trip traffic and someone beats them because they don't get loose early enough. And that's one of those things you definitely are concerned about. And, I want to make sure I spread here and I'm able to hit the price, because I do think this is one of those price legs. And if we can beat, look, I think we're going to beat the morning line favorite. The question is, does the 9 win? If the 9 doesn't win, I want to have the other 3 closers that I think can get done, because I think we're going to have a pace collapse.
We'll move on to the third leg of the late pick 4 sequence at Del Mar on Saturday, July 11th, race 9. You've got a field of 8 fillies, ages 3 and 4, going a mile on the main track. This is fillies that have started for a claiming price of $50,000 or less, and they've never won 3 races. So you got a starter allowance here. Favoritism is on the number 3, Diva in Charge, at 5-2. She's my top choice here, but I ended up going 3 deep because I think if she doesn't show up with her best effort like she had at Los Al or Santa Anita when she was going 2 turns, this is a wide open race. Where'd you go on top?
Yeah, Diva in Charge was a defensive use for me. Okay. She was the last one on the ticket, and I'll go into why that is before I go into my top horses. That Los Al race course, I always talk about how I find that is more of a turf track than I do a dirt track. And it was also a non-winners of a certain dollar amount in a year, which is a great spot. That it looks like it's a class jump. It's really not that big of a class jump. In her race before, she was an even money favorite at 20,000 maidens. Which is, again, pretty much the lowest level you're going to see at Santa Anita running maiden. So because of that, those 2 things just make me kind of not love this horse. And then you also go back and you look at where she debuted. She actually debuted on turf. So they thought this was a better turf horse than dirt horse. And now we're miling on the dirt. I mean, I think there's enough there that she's going to get bet down from that 5-2 number, because there's not a lot to love when you're looking through these past performances. So for me, I'm going to use her defensively, but I don't have a ton of confidence, but I just also don't want to be beaten by her, especially since I do like prices in the second and last. My top 2 horses are going to be next to each other. I like the 6, Rather Noisy, on top. This one's just the most consistent horse. The mile distance is a little bit of a concern, but we did get a nice layoff. We're going second off a layoff later in the 4-year-old season. I like having Cedillo here. This is Cedillo's 4th time with this horse. Was able to show speeds, been able to stalk, just not quite get the job done. I don't love the fact that we have 12 seconds and thirds and 17 starts. It's a little concerning because we don't necessarily want to pass anyone. Right. But I also think that this horse is the one that I can trust the most. You've got multiple 80s in the back class. You've got high 70s. You've got mid 70s. That kind of towers over the field if you exclude the one effort, the 81 effort from Diva in Charge. So I'm going to go back to the back races of the 6 horse Rather Noisy, who's been consistently running in optional 40 claimers, non-winners of 1. And the one time that was in this allowance 50,000 won. So because of that, I'm going to go with the 6 on top. I'm going to go right to the inside, and I'm going to play the 5 as well. I think that Matthew Chu had an idea that this horse might be better on turf when he claimed the horse. I think he might have been wrong, and I think he might be now going back to the dirt because he realizes he was wrong. And if that's the case, and we continue to improve, because the horse has had almost 5 months in that barn now. If the horse continues to improve later in the 4-year-old season, this could be a really dangerous spot for buyback. And additionally, I think Drayden Van Dyke has something to prove right now. I think that he's going to have a meet at Del Mar. He's done it before. He's loved Del Mar in the past. And you just feel like the kid has a chip on his shoulder right now because of everything that's happened with the Baffert barn. He's kind of lost some steam in Southern California. And I just, it's one of those times where if anyone is going to run with that chip on the shoulder, I think it's going to be Drayden this meet. And so he's someone that I'm looking at, and especially in the early races, because I think you're going to get a little better price than you probably should. I mean, even last year, it's like, okay, you can't leave out Drayden, you can't leave out Flavian. you got to play both of them. And right now you definitely see people leaving out Van Dyke, and then so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the 5 and the 6 to start out. I did use the 3 defensively. I ended up one other horse in here. Where else did you go, Magic?
So I had the 3 on top. I used the 6. That almost was my top choice here. This is a class drop. She was facing optional claimers. My one concern here, she's stretching out for the first time after 17 starts sprinting. Like what?
Yeah.
Why now?
At least it's only a furlong. At least it's,
Yeah. Well, I didn't quite understand that. But the fact that she's 10 for 11 on the board in fast dirt races, you talked about how she's 12 for 17, finishing second or third with those 2 wins as well. You have to use her. You don't have to love the 3-1 price, but I mean, it's pretty fair. And when she's been at this level, she's done really well. My concern with the horse that you were using buyback, what is with that last work on July 5th? 5 furlongs and almost 106. Like, is that? There's one of 2 things. Either this horse is just not a good. Well, 3 things. Horse isn't good. Probably not the case. The horse is not a morning workout star at all, which can happen. Or just this horse isn't doing that well right now. Where do you fall with that? And did you have any concerns with that really slow workout?
Well, it was close to race day. I mean, we're only talking about 5 days in between, or 6 days in between the workout and the race. So I'm assuming that horse wasn't overly pushed in that spot.
Okay.
It also doesn't look like the horse is a fast worker anyway. I mean, you got a bunch of 50s on the page. It's almost a 51, the previous one. You could say maybe the horse doesn't like Del Mar, but the debut with the 57 buyer going 6 furlongs was actually pretty good. So, the horse has some track record over Del Mar of having a decent ability to get over the track. I mean, to me, this late in the career, I'm not overly looking at workouts, especially in this level of horses, because often we don't know what the trainer is trying to do. So that one doesn't really concern me that much. But, to be honest, I didn't even notice it before you mentioned it. Because that's kind of my take on workouts. I mean, we don't know why horses are doing a certain thing, or, did they even shake them up for 3 furlongs and just have them gallop the rest of the way? It's just, there's too many unknowns there in a lot of ways. So, I mean, I'm going to still use them. And I like the 6-1 price.
That makes sense. It's as much that I want to get your opinion on that is, I mean, I'm not a big Matthew Chu fan, but you could be right that this horse has got talent, clearly, at least for this level, and maybe the turf isn't going to be what she ultimately likes. The third horse I ended up using is the 8 Sabino's Pride, all the way on the outside. I don't love that she's a 3-year-old facing older horses, but it is July. She's got to take that step sometime. In 4 starts running for a tag, she's got 2 wins in a second. So the fact that she's at a starter allowance level, I think, is going to fit her well. I like that Diaz rides through the claim. Jorge Parabon is only 1 for 11 first off the claim, but I like that Diaz is going to continue riding through that. And if you look back at the last, or I'm sorry, when she broke her maiden way back on January 12th, that 141 and 1, that's a really slow time, but that race was over at the 3/8 pole. And if she can get that kind of an early lead where I'm not seeing a whole lot of speed that I think is going to be able to go with her if she really wants to push from that outside position, you could see something like that happen. And either way, I think she's got a lot of ability. It's probably why you're going to get 4-1, maybe a little less on her when it comes to betting time. But I know you didn't use her. What did you not like about Sabino's Pride?
Well, I wanted to make sure you knew this race was on turf. You are aware that we're running on turf, right? Or we're running on dirt.
And her last races were on turf. I'm aware.
I blew that joke.
I know, you really blew that one too. Good job. But that race that I'm talking about when she broke her maiden was on dirt going a mile.
Yes, it was on dirt going a mile, but she's clearly a better turf horse. And Liam's map horses seem to be better on the turf. The 11 won the last at Keeneland, by the way, which is what the listener kind of threw out there. That was a turf race with Liam's map horse getting the job done and knocking me out of a contest. I don't like this horse because of the turf aspect of it. I think the improvement is more based on the turf than it is based on the actual age of the horse and the improvement of the horse. Yeah, I think that the 1.1 miles was also a pretty good distance for this horse, especially getting those fractions. It was able to open up an easy lead early and then take a big time breather. I mean, we're talking about a 26-second breather between the 6 furlong and mile mark, and then able to come home in 12 and 2. So I think that the internal pace set up very well. I think that race kind of comes back and looks better than it is. And anytime it's gotten up to the, any type of the optional claimer level, it's just been smoked. And then that's my biggest concern is that there are horses in here who are coming out of optional claimers, success in optional claimers, and those are the ones I'd rather point towards than a horse that's been struggling at that level. I'm going to go ahead and take a crazy stab with your boy, Ruben. I mean, I'm off my rockers, White Velvet, who's going to be my fourth horse in here. We all know, okay, if you listen to the show, you know, I love Hector Palmer when he owns a horse as well. He does very well when he owns horses, not just when he's training them. In this case, he's the owner trainer. That last race, this horse is not a turf horse. We'll start with that. It's
Yes.
Turf Tomlinson isn't very good. That last race made absolutely no sense, but it helps it qualify for this race, which is kind of nice. It did have the maiden 50s back in the day, so it could have qualified off those as well. But look, this horse I think is a logical improved horse. I'm going to go back to the 63 that this horse ran at the end of its 2-year-old season, and I'm going to take the improvement off of that number, and I'm going to put this horse forward. And I think we got a contender. And this horse is going to sit close to the pace. I think you have an upgrade going from Diaz to Fuentes. Fuentes is good out of the gate. He's a smart rider when it comes to the pace. And I think you're going to get every bit of that 15-1, probably a lot more. We're also only carrying 119 as a 3-year-old. So, for me, I think this is a horse that has upside. I think that the last race is going to really turn bettors off. Look, if you had run a 68 there instead of a 56, then you wouldn't think I'm as crazy for using this horse. And he might have easily had a 5 buyer point improvement if he ran on the dirt instead of the turf.
Yeah, but I still wouldn't have used her in this spot, even if she had a 68 on that in that spot. She's not a horse that I would use, but you made good arguments for her.
But you wouldn't think I was crazy if it was a 68. You kind of think I'm a little crazy right now.
That wouldn't be what did it. No, that's if that's what you're looking for.
So, for me, this is one of those spots where I'm trying to find a price. I think that there's a couple weaker, shorter priced horses in here. I think that both of the favorites are vulnerable in the 3 and the 6, which I'm going to use both of them. But I'm going to try and see if I can get a number around them. And for me, I'm going to fade the 2 turf horses on the outside. I'm going to try and hit a big number with the 2 and then also include the 5.
We'll move on to the fourth and final leg of the late pick 4 sequence at Del Mar on Saturday, July 11th. And if memory serves, Mike, from my time playing Del Mar last year, the last race is always a stacked field on the turf. And this is where some fun things can happen. And that's why I went shallow early, and I'm 5 deep here. You've got a field of 12 maiden fillies and mares 3 and up going a mile on the turf. Maiden special weight, $50,000 purse. Favoritism is on the number 5 Nurse Goodbody at 3-1. And I wish I had a stinger for this because we have a super Crispoli alert. Eric Cooljack, the trainer, Umberto Rispoli, the jockey. This is a combo that I always play. And I remember when she lost her last race at Santa Anita, I had a lot of money on her to win that one, so I really need her to come through. But if everything's as chalky as the rest of my ticket is, this 3-1, it's not going to pay so well. Still got to use her. Absolutely love her on top. Where are you going?
Yeah, I mean, she's the best horse in the race. This is the horse that I would single up if I was going to single up anyone in the sequence. Kitten's Joy, second time out as a 4-year-old. The Kruljack Rispoli thing obviously is a nice angle. This horse should be able to absolutely loaded coming home. My biggest concern is exactly what I just said. She's going to be trying to be loaded coming home. I don't love these pace horses or these horses coming from the back in these races that turn into scrambles. And there's, we got 12 horses in the field. There's the likely traffic trouble if you try, or you got to go 7 wide, or something weird happens. For all of those reasons, I have enough in here that I don't want to single this horse up. So I am going to end up 3 deep. I did play the 5 on top. I do think it's the most singled horse. I also sent you the wrong number in my email. I'm not using the 11. I'm going to use the 12.
Okay, good. I'll make that change right now. I was sitting here looking at maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I could see why you'd use the 11. It's Callahan and it's Cedillo coming in from overseas, and why not take a swing? But there's not a ton of pace in here, and I really like the 12 horses. So the 12 horse ran 2 races over the turf. Then they switched over to dirt for its later 3-year-old debut. Daredevil's a sneaky good turf horse, or turf sire, more than Ready is kind of that turf, more turf to me than dirt. Mm-hmm. And so I like this horse getting back on turf. I think it's a logical angle that this horse can prove second off the layoff. Going back to turf, I think is good. Turf to dirt for McCarthy, $6.31 ROI. Like you said, Hernandez is a very capable jockey. People aren't going to necessarily recognize him in Southern California as much, but he's very, very capable. And I think this horse could sit a really nice trip. You're all the way on the outside with the 12 post, which I don't absolutely love, especially going the mile distance. But if he can work out a turn, I think this horse is really, really dangerous.
Yeah, so I actually had 2 must-uses, the favorite and the 12th. And the distance, Del Mar has a shorter stretch on both sides, which means when you go 2 turns, you start farther back from the finish line. So if this was at Santa Anita, I'd say 12 post, it's a little worrisome. At Del Mar, you got that whole stretch. It's like a mile and an eighth race at Santa Anita. You got that whole stretch run to try and get good position and clear over. And by the way, I just remembered it last summer. Abel Cedillo did the same thing Juan Hernandez is doing, where he was one of the top jockeys up north, came down, and for a while you could get some really nice prices on him racing at Del Mar, and he cleaned up really well last year. By the end of the meet, people figured out what was going on, but I'm really hoping we can get that with Hernandez because he's got some live mounts on all 3 days this weekend. This Sweet Devil I really love. Second off the layoff, the fact that Cedillo, Pratt, and Rispoli all saw fit to ride this horse for McCarthy tells me there's a lot. There's a very slight worry, Mike, that there's 3 here from Michael McCarthy's barn, but you also have 2 from John Sheriff's. You've got a couple from some other trainers in here. I'm not that worried about it because that more smells like these guys were all waiting to send their turf horses to Del Mar and get away from Santa Anita and try and unload them in one of these big premier events. So I'm not too worried about that. Like I said, I went 5 deep rather. I didn't use your third horse, so I'll let you talk about that in a second. But I did use the 6, Resarcio. I liked that a lot. Second off the layoff for John Sheriff's. Almost got the job done in each of her last 2 starts. She just needs a little bit more racing luck. I know she got caught by a nose by Nurse Goodbody in their last start against each other. But, the fact that she missed by a neck, missed by a length, and now this is second start off the layoff. Plus, she had that really sharp work, 5 furlongs, a minute flat here at Del Mar on July 3rd. I think she's feeling really good, and 4-1's a low price, but I'm hoping a little bit of the Crispoli magic attracts a lot of bettors to put money on Nurse Goodbody, maybe spice up Resarcio a little bit.
Yeah, I wouldn't take 4-1 on the 6, but if it floated up to 6 or 7-1, then I definitely wouldn't try and talk you off it. I think the horse has a logical chance to just take a step forward. I just think this field is a little tougher than necessarily what it faced last time. I realized Nurse Goodbody was in there as my top pick, but I don't think that field was. The fact that the 6 horse was 10-1 there and just wasn't able to, and I think it might have overperformed its odds in that spot. So we'll see what's able to do come back here. I did not end up using it because I do think that the 5 horse covers it. I am going to go to the 1 horse on the inside. I talked about how there's a lack of speed in this race. And this 1 horse is kind of my classic Mike Somich likes this horse stretching out speed, where, we're going 22, 21, and 4 early, going 5.5 furlongs. We're stretching out to a mile. I think the 1 horse is going to be able to beat everybody in the turn. It can be able to sit a nice trip doing so. And if this horse has is able to go 23, 47, this is going to be the fastest horse sprinting home. And both of those efforts are not bad at all. By violence out of the Mandela barn. We're 3rd off the layoff. The 2 sprints to a route is an angle that I like. There's just enough here that I'm willing to take a shot at a 12-1 price if this horse wires the field. Honestly, the biggest threat from a pace perspective is the 2 horse right to the outside. And I think Figueroa is going to get this horse out better than Roman will. And so if the 1 horse is able to get out and be the pace, the 1 horse could take him a really long way. And the other horses that I like are all coming from off the pace. So it doesn't hurt to have one of the ones that's going to be up top.
This is where Magic's bias seeps in and can't be stopped. I don't like Figueroa, and Gary Mandela is an absolute gem of a human being. He's not his dad when it comes to training horses, and I staunchly stand against Gary Mandela and everything. And it burned me really badly.
Everything.
It's true. One time. All 25 starts that he's had. One time he beat me, and it was with freaking Page Runner, who was actually in the last race that we talked about. Figueroa was aboard. They lost that horse. I thought that was the one good horse that they had in the barn. And I'm not going to go with baseball. You make good arguments. The fact that Gary Mandela really just struggles to get the wins, and hey, maybe he doesn't have the stock that his Hall of Fame trainer dad does. I don't trust Figueroa to get the job done. I especially don't trust him in a 12-horse field to figure out how to navigate from the rail, even with the speed horse, how to get her all the way around and finally get her that first win. She's lightly raced, but she's 5 at this point. With a horse like Violence as the sire, if you didn't fire as a 2-year-old or early in your 3-year-old season to get the job done and get your win, it's hard for me to back you, because that is when you really want to strike with those early precocious sire types. Is you don't wait till they're 5 and go, okay, now we're going to back this horse and we're going to get to win. From a pace setup, which your argument makes sense, this is just something that I personally can never sign up for.
Yeah, and I don't blame you, man. I'm like, this is one of those horses where I'm playing it because I don't see any speed, and I think that people will misread this horse and not see it as speed, and I do think it's going to be the speed of the speed in this case. You could also say Smith rode it, Pratt rode it, Van Dyke rode it, so he was able to attract good jockeys through the middle part of
and
his
they
career.
Couldn't get it done. And you're going to trust Figueroa?
Yeah, because they didn't send this horse to the lead. Figueroa is going to push it right to the lead right out of the gate. And we're going to go wire to wire, 12-1. What's up?
Real quick, the last 2 horses I did use the 11 Surround, who you initially thought about using and changed to the 12. Because of what you said, it's Callahan, first time North America. I'm actually surprised he's only 1 for 6 with it, because I usually would consider him to be good at this talent. First time Lasix, I would expect this horse to improve. A 67 time form doesn't equate into a very good buyer, but that was also, her first start as a 3-year-old. She's had time in North America to adjust. I don't like that she's only had 2 starts on her. This is more of a defensive use than anything else. But Cutter Racing likes to send horses to Simon Callahan and trust that he's going to get them prepped and ready to go. He did that with True Valor really well. So I'll use the 11th round. I'll also use the horse to the inside, Bristol Bayou, the 10. There's another horse coming out of a couple of turf sprints where her first 2 races on turf, those are the best 2 that she's got. Look at her back class. So the horse that was third in that maiden special weight turf sprint, Affiance, came back to win. But before that, Venetian Harbor, Monday Call, who was a very highly touted 2-year-old. She's just now going to be returning. Donna Veloce, KP Dreamin', Lazy Daisy. Holy shit, look at the horses she's had to face and as a 2-year-old. So I'm willing to forgive her for not getting the job done just because she's not a Kentucky Oaks contender. So how the hell was she supposed to beat them? The mile, I think, is going to be a little bit of a test. I'm curious to see how she handles it. But, she did okay at Del Mar going a mile in her second career start. She faded a little bit, but now she's on turf where I believe that's where her best surface is going to be. And John Sheriffs and Victor Espinoza, man, they are really strong together. 38% at Del Mar last year, 29% overall between Del Mar and Santa Anita. So 8-1 is a really good price on Bristol Bayou, 6-1 on Surround. And like I said, when I talked about this race at the beginning, this is the kind of race when you can really get some prices home. And if you got a favorite, like we both love the 12 Sweet Devil at 8-1, sign me up.
Yeah, the 10 horse was the next one out for me. I think you can make a very good case for this horse, and I agree with you that I believe turf probably is the better surface here, and the mile on turf shouldn't be as tough to hit. Espinoza's ridden this horse 3 times before. The other times that this horse has gone out, it's been Smith, and like you said, it's faced a lot of very, very good horses. So you definitely can't knock it for not breaking its maiden yet. I think that the 10 at 8-1 is probably the next one in for me, but I'm already at $72. I kind of had to stop somewhere, and that's where I kind of struggled with this race.
All right, that's going to wrap things up. Thank you so much for joining Mike and I to go through the card, the late pick 4 sequence at Del Mar on Saturday, July 11th. Like we said at the top of the show, man, we were really excited to have Del Mar back.
Yeah,
Keeneland is full swing. We'll go ahead and give out our tickets one last time real quick. If you're watching live or watching the replay, check down below because we got you hooked up right here in case you mishear us. I'm going to start off going 1-4-8 with 1-9 with 3-6-8 with 5-6, 10, 11, 12. That's a $45 ticket. Mr. Samich, did I get it right on the ticker? And do you want to give us your tickets?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to read it off the ticker, so it'll be right. That makes it easy, right? I'm going to go.
Want me to pause it for you?
No, it's good. I'll just I'll fill it here because I really appreciate you saying that in case we say it or we say it wrong when really we would have written it down wrong. Anyway, yeah, my 50-cent ticket here is going to be 1-4-7 with 3-7-8-9 with 2-3-5-6 with 1-5-12 for 50 cents. That'll cost $72. Hopefully, return about $2,000.
Yeah, that'd be real nice. Real nice way to start things off at Del Mar. Once again, so excited to get that back. This weekend, you also have a little bit of action going on at Keeneland. 6 graded stakes races Saturday at Keeneland, highlighted by the $600,000 Toyota Bluegrass Stakes. It's a grade 2 event. 100 Kentucky Derby points on the line. Our boy Enforceable is back for the first time since the Louisiana Derby.
Got a legit shot, too.
I don't know if he's going to win, but I will say from watching Keeneland yesterday and a little bit today, it's refreshing to watch a dirt track that plays fairly to closers when the pace sets up. I'm used to Santa Anita where the only time a closer wins is if the 6 horses in front of it fall over, like completely fall over.
Total meltdown or 7 furlongs. It's a bunch of sprinters. It's the only way closers win at Santa Anita.
Right, yeah. So I'm excited for this. It's kind of a wide open field. Where are you going on top real quick with your Bluegrass pick?
I'm not sure yet. I will tell you again, my biggest opinion is to play against Swiss Skydiver. I think 3-1 morning line, I think is nutty.
That's the favorite.
Nutty. Like, no, I'm sorry. I get it. Okay, she's run really well. Remember when she was 10-1 against the Phillies at Gulfstream, though? And she wired the field, and everyone said the only reason she won was because Paco sent her to the lead and no one could run her down. Yeah, I'm not using that same horse at 3-1. I don't care. I'm not going to play that horse at 3-1. It's just that simple because the horse shouldn't be 3-1. It should be 10-1, 12-1, not 3-1. And maybe on race day it will float up. I have some feelings about this. Maybe on race day it will float up, and then you can get some decent value on it. But yeah, I mean, maybe it's a defensive use if you're playing multi-race bets. But I'll tell you, I would not put a win bet on that horse.
It's, what's interesting? This is the second time ever that a filly has run in the Bluegrass, and the first time that a filly will run in the Bluegrass at Keeneland, because the one time that a filly did run previously, which I think was like 1948, Keeneland's meet was actually being held at Churchill Downs that year. So something very historic here. And not, like Mike said, not only is she in it, but she's the 3-1 favorite. I know Aaron really likes Art Collector. You can check out the free preview for that on racingdudes.com. It's up right now.
It's a little biased though. He did he did claim Art Collector in the league. So
I was that close to saying something to him about that too. But I will say, in all fairness, Aaron is really good about separating the two. If I've seen plenty of times where he's had a horse in a race and he goes, "He didn't third. Don't bet this horse to win." I'm telling you. So it's kind of like if Mike and I own a horse and we tell you, maybe don't bet him to win. Yeah. Top 2, top 3, use them underneath. That's probably where you should do that. You should probably listen to us because we're as honest as anybody about our horses, right?
Yeah, I like money more than my 1/100th of a share of a racehorse's tail. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and play with my head instead of my heart in those spots.
Go to racing.com and click on the Handicap Products page. The Inside Track to the Bluegrass Stakes wagering guide is available, covering every single race, not just the 6 stakes at Keeneland on Saturday. It's available for sale right now while you're there. Check out some of the Sama bombs. Mr. Samit, you are doing as well at Keeneland as I had expected, as a lot of people. I know you said you were a couple photos away from things going the right way for you today, but overall, you got to be feeling good going in this weekend, right?
Yeah, I feel like I'm seeing the ball well. Gave out free Samo bombs on Wednesday to open the meet, and we opened it up with a $2,100 pick 4, pick 5, so that didn't suck. I just got it going right away, and then today was a little bit in and out, but today also was one of those nine race cards where if you're wrong in 1 or 2 spots, it just blows the whole day up. So I'm looking forward to getting a few more races over the weekend at Keeneland. Kind of a bummer it's only a 5-day meet. It would be fun to see them go a little bit longer. By the way, fun fact, it's the first Bluegrass run in July too.
Ooh, that's true. I keep forgetting. Everything's all thrown off because of COVID. I'm like, this is normal.
No.
This is the new normal.
Hey, this is racing. We'll take it. We're happy. So I'm excited for this weekend. We'll see what happens with the rain and kind of how that goes. We'll also have a pick 6 that is mandatory on Sunday from both Belmont and Keeneland. So we may go one place or the other depending on the payouts there.
Keeneland.
Yeah, well, but the problem is that if there's no carryover, then it's really not that great. It's also a dollar denomination, so
you have to see how Saturday goes. It's a dollar. Shit,
I think it's a dollar denomination there. So and maybe Del Mar. We don't really know where the best fields are going to be. I haven't looked at any of Sunday's cards yet because Saturday I'm planning on doing Belmont and probably Del Mar too. So it's going to be a busy weekend, man. But it's nice to have Keeneland back. It's nice to have Del Mar back. It's nice to know that Saratoga is just
I was gonna say Saratoga is 1 week away, baby.
So then I'll be able to complain about it raining in Saratoga and races going off the turf and being frustrated because I have to recap the card and the whole deal. But you know what? It'll be nice to have Saratoga back.
You can follow us on Twitter. I am at Curtis Kellerard. He is at SummerBomb18, number 1, number 8, Corporate Overlords, at Racing_Dudes. They are about to record Blinkers Off later today. So if you're listening to this live on the video stream, thank you so much for joining us. Come back in a few hours because the Racing Dudes will be doing their show, I'm sure, streaming as well. Until then, it's been another episode of the Magic Mike Show. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
We will see you next time.
The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.